am 55. That number still surprises me whenever I say it out loud. Old enough to be called a senior in some brochures, but young enough to still climb stairs without thinking, to still want more from life. Old enough to have given everything, but not yet too old to take it back. For the last 6 years, I have lived with my daughter and her husband under the same roof, in a spacious house I bought with my own money. I told myself it was for them, for their comfort, for their future children. The truth is, I was afraid of being left behind. I thought that if I provided a roof, they would provide closeness. I believed walls could hold people together. I paid for that house the way mothers always pay, not just with checks and signatures, but with decades of self-denial. Every shift I worked, every second job I took, every time I turned away from something I wanted and told myself, maybe later. The house was made of more than concrete and steel. It was made of my bones, my sacrifices. And that night, standing in the narrow hallway outside my daughter's room, I realized it had become my prison. Earlier in the evening, the universe had seemed to smile at me. I held in my trembling hands a lottery ticket worth $21 million. At first, I thought I had misread it. My eyes kept scanning the numbers over and over, as if expecting them to rearrange themselves into something ordinary. But no, they stayed the same. 21 million. My heart raced. My breath came in shallow bursts. It wasn't just about the money, though God knows. After years of scraping, of carrying everyone else, it felt like a miracle. No, it was about possibility. About freedom. For the first time in decades, I felt like I could dream without apologizing. I imagined walking into my daughter's room, ticket in hand, saying, "We're saved." All of us. I pictured us hugging, laughing, clinking glasses in the kitchen. For once, I thought, life had rewarded me for enduring. But as I approached her door, the voices stopped me. Her voice. My daughter's. If we increase the dose, by Christmas she won't even remember who she is. At first, my brain refused to understand. I stood frozen, my hand still holding that little slip of paper that now felt like both salvation and curse. She was talking about me. I didn't make a sound, didn't step forward, didn't breathe. The words repeated in my head like an echo bouncing off the walls of a canyon. Increase the dose. She won't even remember who she is. I turned slowly, silently, and walked back to my room. The door clicked shut behind me with the softness of a confession. Inside, the air felt heavy, like the oxygen had been drained out. I sat on the edge of my bed, my body stiff, my hands shaking so violently I had to grip the lottery ticket tighter, or it would have fluttered to the floor. Joy had dissolved into terror in a single moment. I didn't sleep. Not a second. All night, I sat upright, staring at the shadows on the wall, trembling like a child in the dark. Every time I closed my eyes, I heard her voice again, cold and calculated, as if I were a science project and not the woman who had given her life. And in that sleepless night, scenes from my life marched through my mind, one after another, relentless. Her first cry in the hospital. I was 19, alone, terrified. No father in sight, just me and this tiny, furious miracle. I swore to her that I would protect her from everything. The years blurred after that, late nights at the diner, scrubbing floors, chasing bills I could never quite catch, and always making sure she had shoes without holes, books without missing pages, medicine when she needed it. When she got pneumonia at 9, I sold my wedding ring to pay for her hospital stay. When she turned 16, I worked overtime to pay for driving lessons because I didn't want her to feel less than her classmates. I stood in rainstorms at bus stops so she wouldn't have to. I took insults from bosses, stares from strangers, and debt collectors' calls, all so she could stand tall. And now, she wanted to erase me. I thought about her education, 4 years of tuition, every semester bill handled by me. I remembered how I ironed her dress before her wedding, my hands trembling with pride and exhaustion, thinking I had finally succeeded as a mother. I remembered the nights she called me Mommy, when nightmares woke her, the afternoons we baked cookies together, her laughter echoing in the kitchen. Did all of that mean nothing? Had it all been just stepping stones toward this moment, where she could look at her husband and plot to turn me into a helpless puppet, an old woman without memory, easy to strip of money and dignity. The ticket crumpled slightly in my palm as I squeezed it. $21 million. That was why. That was the only explanation. She thought I would be easy prey. The shadows on the walls seemed to shift as the hours dragged on. I watched the clock hands crawl, every tick sounding like a countdown to something inevitable. I pressed my free hand against my chest, feeling my heart pound as if it were trying to break out. At one point, I whispered into the silence, "How could you?" My own voice startled me. It sounded so small, so broken, so unlike the woman who had carried the weight of 2 lives for decades. I had always imagined betrayal would come with shouting, with slammed doors, with words like knives. Instead, it came softly, almost clinically, wrapped in the language of convenience. Increase the dose. By Christmas. She won't even remember. I clutched the ticket tighter. My lifeline. My proof that I still existed, still mattered. But instead of joy, it burned in my hand. The night stretched on endlessly. I replayed every sacrifice, every slight, every moment of invisibility I had swallowed for the sake of peace. I thought of the times she rolled her eyes at me in front of her friends, the times her husband smirked when I asked a question, the way they sometimes spoke over me, as if I were furniture. I told myself it was normal, that young people are careless, that love meant forgiving. But this was not carelessness. This was calculation. By the time dawn crept through the blinds, painting the walls with pale light, something inside me had shifted. The trembling slowed. My breathing steadied. I was no longer the woman who sat silently, hoping love would be enough. I was something else. The house was quiet, yet inside my chest it felt like storms were colliding. I sat on the edge of my bed, holding the lottery ticket as if it could anchor me. Only an hour earlier I had imagined celebrating with my daughter. Now all I could hear was her voice from the hallway, cool and sharp. If we increase the dose, by Christmas she won't even remember who she is. I couldn't move. My body felt like stone. I pressed my hands together to stop them from shaking, but the tremors kept coming. I stayed silent because I knew if I spoke to her right then, she would tell me I was imagining things. She would tilt her head, speak gently, and make me doubt my own ears. That fear alone kept me locked in my room. The night stretched in front of me like an endless road. Memories flooded my mind, each one cutting me open in a different way. I remembered last month at the doctor's office. The physician asked me a question about my headaches. I had just opened my mouth to answer when my daughter leaned forward and said, "She gets confused with details." "I'll explain." The doctor typed on his computer, barely glancing at me. I felt invisible, a patient without a voice. My daughter had patted my arm, as if to calm me, but really it was a warning not to argue. Then there was the day at the grocery store. I offered to push the cart, just to be useful. She laughed lightly, but it cut deep. "Mom, just walk. You're slower with it." The cashier smiled politely while my daughter teased. She always forgets coupons. I handed over my card and paid, pretending not to feel the sting. I told myself it was harmless. But sitting here in the dark, I knew those small remarks had been practice. Training. She had been teaching everyone, including me, that I was slipping. I remembered last Thanksgiving. I baked the same pie I'd made every year since she was little. When guests arrived, she moved it to the far end of the table and told them, "We're trying a modern look this year." Mom loves her classics. Everyone laughed politely. I smiled, but inside it felt like I'd been pushed out of my own tradition. Later, I looked at the photos she posted online. I was there in only one picture, blurry, in the background, carrying dishes. The pattern was always the same. I tried to share stories from her childhood, and she would roll her eyes. "We've heard this one, Mom." Her husband laughed, and I went quiet, stabbing at my food so they wouldn't see my hands shake. At the pharmacy, when the clerk asked me to confirm my address, she spoke over me. She forgets things sometimes. The clerk softened her tone and called me sweetheart. I carried the bag out with a face burning hot with shame. Piece by piece, she had been cutting me down. Moving my belongings, changing the house, rearranging life until there was no space left for me. My bookcase was pushed into my small bedroom because the living room should stay open. My favorite plant was put outside because the smell was too strong. The blanket I folded was always unfolded again because it didn't fit the vibe. None of it seemed cruel at first, but added together, it built a cage around me. The most painful part was the tone she used when speaking about me to others. She's set in her ways. She gets mixed up. She can't handle stress. Small sentences, easy to brush aside. But each one stripped me of dignity. And I had let it happen, thinking it was just her way of adjusting to adulthood. Now I could see it clearly. She was preparing the story of who I was: weak, confused, dependent, so that when she took everything, no one would question it. I wasn't her mother anymore. I was a burden she was rewriting out of existence. I pressed the ticket to my chest and whispered into the dark, I am not confused. I am not weak. My voice sounded steadier than I expected. That truth mattered. Because all night long, the greatest battle wasn't against her, it was against the part of me that wanted to believe her version. I sat until dawn, listing every slight in my mind. When she told the doctor I was forgetful, I felt erased. When she called me slow at the store, I felt humiliated. When she rolled her eyes at my stories, I felt like my memories were garbage. When she removed my photo from the hallway, I felt as though she had erased proof of my life. I had swallowed each wound quietly because I thought silence was love. But silence had only taught her that she could take more. By the time light slid through the blinds, my shaking had stopped. I was still hurt, still stunned, but also awake in a way I hadn't been in years. I finally saw her words for what they were, not careless remarks, but steps in a plan. And I finally saw myself not as a burden, but as a woman who had been used. The ticket stayed in my pocket. My heart stayed steady. Morning had come, and with it, clarity. The night had not broken me. It had shown me the truth. Morning arrived with quiet snow. Thin flakes drifted past the window and melted on the sill. I watched them for a long time and felt something settle inside me. The fear from the night did not vanish, but it changed shape. I was no longer frozen. I was awake. I did not confront my daughter. I did not knock on her door. I did not ask her to explain the sentence I had heard in the hallway. I could have yelled. I could have demanded answers. But I chose to remain silent for myself, for my future. Words would only give her room to deny, twist, and control. Actions would speak for me. I made tea, sat at my small desk, and took out a notebook. I wrote 3 lines: call realtor, meet lawyer, end auto pay and remove access. Simple lines. Each one a turning point. I dialed the realtor first. My hands were steady on the phone. Good morning. I want to sell my house, I said. As soon as possible. There was a pause, then a warm voice. We can do an appraisal today. Are you available at noon? Yes, I said. Please come then. I ended the call and stared at the list again. Snow kept falling, soft and constant. It felt like the city was being washed clean. I thought about fairness as I rinsed my cup. I paid for everything, but they still treated me like a guest. I bought this home so we could be close, and they still asked me to step aside. I covered fees, repairs, and emergencies without question. In return, they took more space, more voice, and more control. I felt the old ache rise in me, then pass. Today was not for arguing with the past. Today was for drawing a line. I called a car service to take me to the lawyer's office. While I waited, I made the bed with smooth corners. I folded the blanket the way I liked, not the way she preferred for pictures. It was a small act, but it felt like mine. In the kitchen, I found my daughter already awake. She was at the counter with her phone, tapping quickly. She did not look up right away. Morning, she said, her tone flat, her eyes still on the screen. Then she glanced at me and smiled like a host greeting a guest. Did you sleep? Yes, I said. I noticed a small bottle on the counter. A new label. A new refill. My stomach tightened. She slid the bottle closer to the fruit bowl, casual, as if it had always been there. Let me organize your pills later, she said sweetly. We can make it simple. Resentment spread through my chest like heat. Every word carried a message. You are not capable. You are not safe with your own life. I kept my face calm. No need, I said. I have a new system I want to try. She blinked. A split second of surprise, then the smile returned. Okay, whatever makes you feel better. She said it softly as if speaking to a child. I placed the empty cup in the sink. I have errands. I'll be back this afternoon. She laughed lightly. Errands? In the snow? Mom, you shouldn't go out. Text me the list. I'll handle it. There it was again, the small net of control thrown with kind words. I kept my voice even. It's important, I said. I'll be fine. On my way to the door, I saw an appointment card tucked under a magnet on the fridge. The clinic name told its own story. Prenatal. The date was a week from now. My breath caught. I glanced at my daughter. She had turned away, pretending not to notice what I had seen. The card changed the air in the room. I felt a rush of love and grief at the same time. A new life might be on the way. A grandchild. The knowledge deepened the weight of my choice. I stood there and let the truth settle. I would not punish a child for an adult's actions. I would not become hard. I would become precise. The car arrived. Snow tapped the windows as we drove. I watched the city pass by in white and gray. I thought about the price of peace. I thought about years of yes, yes, yes. I thought about last night's sentence and how it had turned every small slight into a plan I could no longer ignore. At the lawyer's office, the lobbies smelled like paper and coffee. The receptionist offered me water. I waited with my list open on my lap and my hands quiet. When I was called in, my lawyer greeted me with a concerned look. What brings you in so urgently? I need to make changes, I said. Today, we reviewed my will. I removed my daughter as a beneficiary. I created a trust for community causes I care about, health clinics, adult education, and housing support. Then I added a simple clause. If a grandchild is born, a separate trust will support the child's education and basic needs, managed by an independent firm until the child is grown. No one in my family will control it. The lawyer looked up. Are you sure about this? Yes, I said. My voice was steady. This is not a punishment. This is protection. We updated my power of attorney. I named a professional fiduciary, not a relative. We updated my medical directive and listed a new primary contact, my lawyer's office, until I selected a neutral friend. We added specific language about medication and consent, all standard, all clear. My choices would not be easy to bend. As we worked, snow fell harder outside the windows. The city blurred in white. I felt a kind of quiet strength rising in me. Not anger, not revenge for the sake of revenge. A boundary set with care. Halfway through signing, my phone buzzed. A text from my daughter. Do you want a smoothie? I can bring one to your room. The message hit me like a bell I could not unring. It was gentle, it was helpful, and yet it landed with the same message as always. I manage you. I decide what you need. I typed back, no thanks. I've eaten. Then I put the phone face down. We finished the documents. My lawyer slid the folder toward me. Everything is in place. I'll file the updates today. Do you need anything else? Yes, I said. One more thing. I explained the house. The title was in my name alone. I would be selling. I wanted all sale proceeds to go into a private account under my sole control. We set it up together before I left the office. Outside, the snow had turned into a steady curtain. I pulled my scarf higher and breathed in the cold air. I remembered a different winter, the year my own father said, "You made your choice. You're on your own now." I had been 19 and pregnant, standing on a porch with a small bag and nowhere to go. That memory pushed warmth into my chest even as the wind stung my face. I had built a life from that moment. I would build another one now. The realtor met me at noon. She took photos, took notes, and walked the rooms with quick, professional care. "We can list this week," she said. "If we price it right, we'll get interest fast." "Do it," I said, "and schedule showings for tomorrow afternoon." "Tomorrow." She raised her brows and then nodded. "We'll make it happen." When she left, I opened the utility drawer and pulled out the folder with account information. I sat at the kitchen table and began shutting doors that had stayed open too long. I turned off every automatic payment connected to the home. Building fees, streaming services, subscriptions I never approved. I changed passwords. I removed my card from shared apps. I set up alerts for any new charges. With each click, I felt another strand loosen from around my chest. My daughter came in while I was working. She carried a bright scarf and a gift bag. "I saw this and thought of you," she said. Her smile was warm, practiced. "Let me wrap it around you. You get cold." I accepted the bag. The scarf was soft, a color I liked. I thanked her. I did not promise anything in return. I did not reach for my wallet the way I usually did when she brought something home. I simply accepted it. The gift sat in my lap like a test I chose not to fail. She peered at the papers on the table. "What are you doing?" "Tidying accounts," I said. "It's time." She laughed. "Don't stress yourself. I can do that later." "I've already started," I said, calm and sure. Her smile flickered. "Okay, Mom. Whatever helps you feel organized." The words were sweet. The tone was thin. I let them pass through me like wind through a door I would soon close. After she left the room, I called the bank and requested a new account with no shared access. I updated my mailing address to a secure box. I asked for fraud alerts. I did not explain why. I did not owe anyone a reason. By late afternoon, the snow softened. The sky turned a dim silver. I brewed tea and stood at the window again. Below, the courtyard was quiet. A child in a red coat made small tracks along the path and then disappeared through a door. I felt the ache of years and the solid ground of now. Then the door to my room opened without a knock. My daughter stepped in. "You should rest," she said. "I'll bring your evening pills in a bit." "I'll handle my medicine," I said. She tilted her head. "Mom, please, don't make things difficult." The words landed hard. Don't make things difficult. I heard every other time she had said some version of that. Don't cook that. Don't buy that. Don't tell that story. Don't go out. Don't question the account. Don't be yourself. I could have snapped back. I could have asked about the hallway and the plan to change my memory. I could have said, "I paid for everything and you still asked me to step aside." I let the anger pass through me and out. "I won't," I said simply. "Thank you." She stood there, waiting for me to bend. When I didn't, she smiled again. "Okay, I'm glad we're on the same page." She closed the door softly behind her. The unexpected turn came an hour later. A message arrived from an old neighbor who still had a key to the building and sometimes watered our plants when we traveled. "Are you okay?" she wrote. "I heard something last night. Your daughter and her husband were talking in the hallway. It didn't sound right." My heart beat faster. I typed, "Thank you. I'm safe. I appreciate you checking in." I added nothing else. But her note told me what I needed to know. What I heard was real. I was not imagining it. I was not alone. I returned to my list. I called the pharmacy and asked for a printout of all recent prescriptions. I scheduled an appointment with a new physician for a full review. I requested that any future changes require my spoken consent in person. Everything I asked for was standard. Everything I asked for was my right. When dinner time came, I set places the way I always had. I kept my mask of calm. My daughter and her husband chatted about weather and deliveries. At one point he said, "You should probably let us take over your paperwork. It's a lot to track." The words were smooth. He smiled as he said them. "I'm all set," I answered. "I made some updates today." "What updates?" he asked. "Just routine things," I said, and took a bite of soup. "You won't need to worry about them." He looked at my daughter. A quick exchange passed between them. I pretended not to see it. I kept my shoulders loose. I did not apologize for protecting myself. After dinner, I began packing a single suitcase. Warm clothes, the scarf, important documents. I moved quietly, without drama. I was leaving soon, but I would not run. I would walk out with my head high, with a signed contract and a clear plan. Night came early. Snow turned to a fine rain that tapped the windows like a clock. I sat on the bed with my hands open on my knees and felt the calm return. I thought of the unborn child. I thought of the trust that would be waiting. I thought of the way love can be firm without being cruel. Before I slept, I wrote one more line in my notebook, "Do not explain." Act. I underlined it twice. I turned off the light. The room was dark, but I did not feel small. I did not feel helpless. I felt in charge of my life. Tomorrow the realtor would return. Tomorrow the listing would go live. Tomorrow, the first people would walk through the rooms I had paid for, cleaned, and held together for years. Tomorrow, the house would start to let me go. I closed my eyes and let the sound of the rain wash the last of the night's fear away. I was not planning harm. I was not plotting scenes. I was ending a pattern. I was choosing myself. When sleep finally came, it was deep and clean. The snow had done its work. The rain carried the rest away. And in that quiet, I held one clear promise to myself: I would not be erased. The next day arrived heavy with gray clouds. By noon, the realtor brought 2 couples to view the house. Their footsteps echoed in the hallway, sharp and final. My daughter came out of her room, confusion painted across her face. She looked at the strangers, then at me, her voice rising. "Mom, what does this mean? Why are there people here?" I stood near the window, calm. "It means the house is for sale," I said. "They are here to see it." Her eyes widened. "For sale? We live here." "You can't just, I can," I said evenly. "The house belongs to me." The words stopped her short. She looked at her husband for backup. He stepped forward quickly, his tone sharp under the surface of politeness. "This is ridiculous. You're overreacting. We've built a home here." Inside, resentment flared. Built a home? I had paid for the walls, the roof, every bill that kept the lights on. Yet now they claimed it as theirs. I kept my face still, offering nothing. The realtor continued the tour. My daughter followed, trying to mask her panic with smiles for the buyers. But I saw her hands shake. Each time the realtor opened a door, she whispered harshly to me, "You're destroying everything. Do you want us on the street? Do you want to ruin this family?" Her words cut, but not for the reasons she thought. I remembered how many times she had dismissed me with small phrases. "Don't make things difficult. Let me handle it. You'll forget." Each one had been a brick in the wall that pushed me aside. And now she spoke of family as if it were a shield. Family had been my reason for every sacrifice. Now it was her excuse for control. Later, when the buyers left, she turned on me fully. "You're tearing apart our comfort. We had everything balanced." "Why no?" I wanted to laugh at the word comfort. Comfort for whom? For her and her husband, who lived rent-free while I carried the weight. For them, who treated me as if I were already fading. I thought of nights when I stayed home alone while they went out, telling me I didn't need to come. I thought of holidays where my food was pushed aside for something more modern. I thought of the doctor visits where she spoke for me, erasing my voice in front of strangers. Each memory burned steady, fueling my silence. I did not answer. I only looked at her, my quiet stronger than any argument. The silence unsettled her. She snapped again. "Why won't you say anything? Why are you just standing there?" Because words had never mattered to her. Only control did. And now my actions were louder than any sentence I could speak. Her husband stepped in, trying a softer tone. "Think about the baby," he said. "We'll need space, security. You wouldn't push your grandchild out, would you?" The mention of the child struck deep. A twist of pain, then clarity. They thought love for a baby would trap me. They thought I would bend for innocence I hadn't even met. I stayed steady. "The child will have what it needs," I said. "I've already made sure of that." They didn't know about the trust. They didn't know that I had set aside more for that child than they ever would, free from their hands. Their shock at my calm words told me enough. They had expected fear, begging, hesitation. They found none. Over the next days, the tension in the house grew. They whispered in the kitchen, lowered voices falling silent when I entered. They tried charm, offering me tea, asking if I wanted to watch a show together. When I declined, their smiles froze. Then came sharper tactics. "People will think you're unstable, selling your own home like this," my daughter said one evening. "They'll say you've lost your mind." Her words landed like the others, practiced, cutting, designed to make me doubt myself. But I did not waver. I thought back to the years I had paid for her education, worked extra jobs to keep her safe, defended her against every hardship. And now she used the same voice she once used to ask for help, but with different intent. Not to grow, but to take. I sat through it all in silence. I folded laundry. I cooked my own meals. I packed small boxes with my belongings. With each quiet act, I built a wall she could not climb. One night, she tried a final blow. "You've always been dramatic," she said bitterly. "You pretend to be the victim. But we're the ones who will suffer if you go through with this." The unfairness of that sentence burned like fire. I had given her life, given her home, given her years. Yet she claimed suffering at the thought of losing what was never hers. I clenched my hands in my lap and breathed slowly. I would not give her the fight she wanted. In the days that followed, I saw their panic grow. They searched listings for rentals. They argued in hushed voices about money. They avoided my eyes at the table. Every time they spoke, I heard not love, not care, but fear of losing a comfort they had mistaken for permanence. And in that silence, I found strength. For the first time in years, I was not explaining myself. I was not justifying my choices. I was not apologizing for existing. I was watching their mask slip, and I saw the truth clearly. They had wanted me silent and small, easy to move, easy to manage. But now my silence was not weakness. It was power, and nothing frightened them more. The house emptied out faster than I expected. Boxes were stacked by the door, waiting for the movers. The realtor's calls came almost every day, her voice cheerful with updates. Another interested buyer, another showing, another offer on the way. My daughter's voice was the opposite, sharp, broken, and full of blame. "Mom, you can't be serious," she snapped one morning, her eyes swollen from crying. "Where are we supposed to go? Do you even care about us?" Her husband chimed in, calmer but cutting. "You're throwing away everything we've built. People will say you lost your mind. They'll say you've turned on your own family." Every word stung, not because I doubted myself, but because it revealed how little they understood me. Family had been my reason for every sacrifice. Yet here they stood, accusing me of betrayal, when they had been the ones to plan my erasure. I stayed silent. I folded the last of my clothes into a suitcase and zipped it shut. My daughter glared at me. "Why won't you answer? Why are you just standing there like you don't even care?" I cared. That was the truth. But caring didn't mean I would keep letting them use me. I looked at her, steady and calm. "It's done," I said quietly. The words broke something in her. She sobbed loudly, clutching her husband's arm. "She's ruining everything," she cried. "She doesn't even think about us. She doesn't think about the baby." The baby. That word pierced me every time. I felt the ache of what could have been, holding a grandchild, telling stories, passing on memories. But I also felt the reality. If I stayed, I would never be seen as a grandmother, only as a wallet. I could not let innocence be used as a chain. In those final days in the house, their tactics shifted from pleading to anger. Notes left on the fridge. "Please don't do this to us." Messages on my phone. "You'll regret it when you're alone." One evening, my daughter shouted from the hallway, "You've always been selfish. You just pretend to be the victim. You never think about anyone but yourself." The unfairness of those words made my hands tremble. Selfish? I had worked every job, skipped every treat, built every safety net for her sake. And now, because I refused to let them drug me into silence, I was selfish. I bit my tongue and said nothing. I would not defend myself to people who had already rewritten the story in their favor. The day of the move came. Rain tapped against the windows, steady and cleansing. The movers carried boxes through the hallway while my daughter stood by the door, her face pale and furious. "You'll regret this," she whispered as I walked past with my bag. Her husband muttered, "You're destroying the family." Their words landed like the others, sharp, designed to wound, but I carried my bag anyway. With each step, the resentment softened into something else, resolve. I had been silent for years, hoping love would be enough. Now I was silent because I no longer owed them answers. At the closing table, the realtor slid documents across to me. I signed each one with a steady hand. The house was no longer mine, and that truth felt both heavy and freeing. I stepped out into the damp air, the smell of rain filling my lungs. A car waited to take me to my new home. Weeks later, I stood on the terrace of a small house by the lake. The water shimmered in the afternoon light. Pine trees swayed gently, and the air smelled clean. It was quiet, but not the heavy quiet of the house. This quiet held peace. My phone buzzed with messages I didn't open. Missed calls. Posts online painting me as the villain. She abandoned us, one read. She turned her back on her family. I let the phone rest face down on the table. Their voices no longer held me. One evening, as the sun dipped low and the lake glowed gold, an unexpected message arrived. It wasn't from my daughter. It was from a woman I barely knew, a neighbor from the old building. I saw how much you gave. I saw how little they appreciated it. You did the right thing. Tears welled in my eyes. For years, I had begged silently to be seen. And here was someone outside the family I built who had noticed. Her words were simple, but they broke through years of doubt. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't cruel. I had been a mother who gave everything and a woman who finally chose herself. The pressure didn't stop. More calls. More notes. My daughter even came to the lake house once, pounding on the door, shouting, "You're heartless. You'll die alone." I didn't answer. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of tea and let her words fall away. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of being alone. I had been alone in that crowded house for years. Here, at least, my solitude was mine. Each day by the lake, I built a new rhythm. I walked the trails. I baked bread. I read books I hadn't touched in decades. I smiled at the neighbors who waved from their porches. Slowly, I felt life returning to me, not as someone's caretaker, not as someone's silent shadow, but as myself. Resentment still visited me, often at night. I would hear her words in my mind. "You'll forget. You're dramatic. You're selfish." Each memory stung, but I no longer let it define me. I repeated the truths I had claimed that night in the dark. I am not confused. I am not weak. This is my life. The final twist came when I received a letter from the lawyer. The trust had been filed. The unborn child, my grandchild, would one day have education, care, and safety, without strings, without manipulation. That was my quiet victory. My daughter had lost her chance to control me, but her child would not lose the chance to be cared for. One evening, I lit a small candle by the lake. I thought of the girl I had raised, the woman she had become, and the ways she had hurt me. I also thought of the child who might one day stand on this very shore, holding a piece of me that no one could erase. The flame flickered steady, reflecting in the water. I sat alone, but inside I felt full, free at last. And as I watched the flame burn, I realized something I want anyone listening to remember. I realized age is not about weakness. It's about dignity. If you've ever felt like you don't belong, you're not alone. I won't be afraid to tell the truth anymore, even if it hurts.